made contact and shattered.
At some point, Chris locates what's called a dry bag.
Law enforcement had considered Laundrie the only person of interest in the murder of his fiancée, Gabby Petito.
Reference to a missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and advised that the mother had went for a walk, came home, now they can't find her. They've been yelling for her. She's been gone for about 10 minutes now.
Turn it over to another agency. Let's get some help.
Hello? John.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Today we're going to be talking about the Delphi Murders. This is our first live stream on this case on this channel. I have been watching it through headlines since it's been active for the last 5 years, almost 6 years. So we're going to go through that. Good morning, everybody. I've got my coffee in my Willy Wonka mug. It says, "You get nothing." I got my Weekend, the Singer, not the Days, sweatshirt. So I'm all cozy and ready to do this live stream with you guys. It's cloudy here in upstate New York. Same story, different day. So how are you guys doing? I hope everyone's doing well. I see Florida Bass Fishing, Mel Mac, Karen. Thank you all for being here. Hi, Nicole, Georgie, Joseph. You're all here. So what I want to do is go through my own pre-recording on the case, which will kind of summarize things and kind of recap for those who already know the case. And then I'm going to go into some of the news highlights from the press conference yesterday. I won't play the whole press conference. I'll just play the highlights. And then there's just some stuff that I want to recap with other elements in the case. So bear with me. We will get to this. Hello, allegedly. So glad you're here. And yes, please hit like and subscribe if you haven't. It's absolutely a free way to support the channel. So thank you so much. And that's all I really ask is for a like and a subscribe. And anything else is obviously appreciated. So let's get started, guys. What we know about the Delphi murders of Libby German and Abby Williams. It's been more than 5 years since best friends Libby, 14, and Abby, 13, set off on a walk in their hometown of Delphi, Indiana, never to be seen alive again. Since then, several local men have fallen under suspicion for their murders. But no arrests were made, no suspects formally named, and one promising lead after next went cold until now. For the first time, a man has been arrested in connection to the 2017 murders of the teenagers. Richard Allen, a 50-year-old married Delphi man, was taken into custody on Wednesday, October 26, and booked into Carroll County Jail. He has since been moved to a state facility for his own safety. On Monday, Indiana State Police announced Mr. Allen is charged with 2 counts of murder and has pleaded not guilty. Officials said the affidavit is currently under seal and declined to provide additional details about the bombshell development in the high-profile case that has rocked the small-town, close-knit community of Delphi and gone unsolved for more than half a decade. As news of the arrest broke on Friday, Libby's sister Kelsey German tweeted that today is the day they have been waiting for. Just know how grateful I am for all of you. No comments for now. Any questions, please refer to Carroll County Prosecutor's Office. There is tentatively a press conference Monday at 10 a.m. We will see more then. Today is the day, she said. In a follow-up tweet, she added, "Nothing is confirmed at this time. Here's what we know about the case. What happened to Libby and Abby?" Libby and Abby went missing on February 13, 2017, after they set off on a hike along the Monon High Bridge Trail in Delphi, Indiana. Their bodies were discovered the next day in a wooded area around half a mile off the trail. For years, police have refused to say how the girls died and have revealed few details about the crime scene. However, shocking new details about the murders came to light in a search warrant application obtained by podcast The Murder Sheet and shared with the Independent back in May. The warrant filed by an FBI agent investigating the murders back in 2017 and partly Redacted was to carry out a search on the home of a local man, Ronald Logan. In it, the agent revealed that the girls had lost a lot of blood during their deaths and that their killer is believed to have moved and staged their bodies before taking some sort of souvenir from the scene. For the first time, the warrant also revealed that the teenagers had been killed by some type of weapon. The word of the weapon was redacted in the document. The murderer would have been covered in the victim's blood in the aftermath of the slayings due to the large amount of blood that was lost by the victims at the crime scene, it reads. Because of the nature of the victim's wounds, it is nearly certain the perpetrator of the crime would have gotten blood on his person's clothing. Abby and Libby are believed to have been killed in another location before the murderer then moved their bodies to where they were found. The surface documents show chilling footage of the suspect. On the day the girls went missing, Libby had posted photos on Snapchat of her and Abby walking along the trail. The happy image of two best friends is believed to be the last photo of them before they died. In a move that propelled the investigation forward, Libby also captured a grainy video of a man dressed in blue jeans, a blue jacket, and a cap walking along the abandoned railroad bridge. Investigators released a grainy image of the video and chilling audio of the man telling the two girls. Investigators have long suspected that this man is the girls' killer and have praised the girls for documenting the video as evidence. Up until now, the man has never been identified. Police gave the description of the man as a white male aged between 16 and 40 years old, between 5'6" and 5'10" in height and weighing around 180 to 200 pounds. Multiple police sketches were circulated of the man matching the description of the man in the footage. Who is Richard Allen? It is not clear what information has led to Mr. Allen's arrest now more than 5 years on the 2017 slayings. In August, Indiana State Police were spotted searching the Wabash River in Peru around 40 minutes east of Delphi in connection to the case. At the time of the murders, Mr. Allen would have been 44 years old. The 50-year-old is a local resident of Delphi where the teenage girls lived with their families. According to online records, Mr. Allen has lived in Delphi since at least 2006 and in Indiana his whole adult life. He is married and works as a pharmacy technician, receiving his recent pharmaceutical license in February 2018, 1 year from the murders. A local said that Mr. Allen currently works at the local CVS store, coming into contact with members of the community as part of his job. When I will go into CVS as a customer myself, he would say, "Do you need any help?" I would be like, "No." The manager of a local pub said that Mr. Allen was a regular there. Just like a normal guy that I've seen for the last couple years, not really thinking anything. Mr. Underhill said that Mr. Allen always seemed normal when he would come into the pub. I would talk, he wouldn't say much. He seems like a normal guy, he said. One of my servers was telling me that he wouldn't speak much. Mr. Allen appears to have no prior criminal record. However, the Carroll County Jail records list Mr. Allen as also going by an alias of Craig Ross Renfro. Other names tied to the case. The arrest of Mr. Allen marks the very first time his name has been publicly tied to the unsolved murders. Over the years, authorities have honed in on several other men. A 27-year-old Indiana man fell under the spotlight last year when the online account he used to groom underage girls online was tied to the victims. His home had been searched on suspicion of child P charges just 2 weeks after the 2017 murders. In the December 2021, Indiana State Police announced that the officials had uncovered a fake online profile called Anthony Shots. The profile was used from 2016 to 2017 on platforms including Snapchat and Instagram, and used photos of a known male model portraying him as being extremely wealthy and owning numerous sports cars. Investigators said the person behind the account was Keegan Anthony Klein, a 27-year-old man with addresses in Kokomo and Peru. close to Delphi. According to an affidavit, Klein posed as the model in order to groom underage girls and get them to send nude photos and their addresses and try to get them to meet up. The male model, whose photos were used, has no connection to the case. Klein was arrested on charges of child SA images and child exploitation tied to the account in 2020. He allegedly admitted to investigators that he groomed underage girls online. The affidavit said that Indiana State Police and the FBI carried out a search warrant on February 25, 2017, less than 2 weeks after Abby and Libby were murdered, at Klein's home in Peru. After tracking down the user of Anthony Schott's profile to his property, Klein allegedly told investigators he would use social media accounts to talk to underage girls and had exchanged messages and received over 100 photos and about 20 sexually explicit videos from the underage girls. However, he denied any knowledge or involvement in the two teenagers' deaths. Klein was charged with 30 felonies in 2020 over the case. The documents filed in 2020 are heavily redacted, do not mention the murders of Libby and Abby, and was not accused of involvement in their deaths in the affidavit. Libby's grandmother, Becky, told The Independent in December that the teenager had never been mentioned speaking to anyone online prior to her death, and that there had never been any indication that the two girls had arranged to meet anyone online the day they were killed. Up until last night, we were all under the impression that there was no indication, or even now, as far as I'm aware, there is no indication that the girls had any plans to meet anyone out there on the trail, she said. Miss Patty, who raised Libby from the age of 3 along with her husband Mike, also said she had never heard of Klein before the investigators released the information about the social media profile to the public. However, after so many leads had gone cold, she said she was not going to get her hopes up that it was the breakthrough the family had been waiting for. Investigators urged anyone who had communications with, met, or attempted to meet the individuals posing as Anthony Schatz to come forward with information. Prior to this, Mr. Logan had previously been on police radar according to 2017 search warrant application. Mr. Logan owned the land on which the Libby and Abby's bodies were found, and his home was just 1,400 feet from the crime scene. The warrant application cites multiple complaints that he was violent towards women and that he owned multiple weapons, including handguns and knives. Mr. Logan also allegedly lied about where he was the time the teenagers disappeared. He told investigators that he was picked up by a friend around 2 p.m. on the 13th of February and driven to an aquarium store, returning hours later at 5 p.m., the document states. The friend confirmed the alibi before admitting 2 days later that Mr. Logan had made up the story and asked him to lie. Instead, cell phone location data placed Mr. Logan in the area around the time the Abby and Libby disappeared. The document also says his voice was not inconsistent with the man captured in the video by Libby. Mr. Logan has never been charged and died in 2020 before the case was solved. Delphi community hopes for closure. More than 5 years on from the murders, news that an arrest has been made has raised hopes among the Delphi community that there may finally be closure to the case. Local store owner Laura Green said that the community has never been the same after the murders. It's had a big effect. I mean, in the beginning, we didn't trust people. We were always looking behind our back. For many we spoke to, the worst revelation today was that the suspect was one of our own. For those of us who came in contact with this suspect, it's kind of eerie. Finally having a breakthrough in the case was a positive day for the community, she said. We are very happy. We are very happy as a community. We can all put this behind us and are very happy for the family. However, even if the developments does bring closure to the case, the families of Libby and Abby will never have closure from what happened. Okay, and as you know, this is the suspect's daughter, pictured a year, couple years after the murders on the same exact bridge. And thank you, everyone who has joined us since we started. I was just doing a little bit of a pre-recorded recap, and I see everybody joining in chat. So thank you so much. Before I carry on with some highlights from the press conference, I do want to just read a little bit of some of my notes that discuss Keegan Kline a little bit further in an article that was posted a couple months ago. So before this breaking news in the case took place, this article was posted, and it has a little bit of a transcripts with police and Keegan Kline. And I've seen people in chat saying they still believe Keegan Kline is involved. I think that there is definitely room for his involvement still. So yeah, Kay Danielle, it's the same tracks. And from what I understand, those tracks, that area, the bridge, isn't something that people frequent often. It's not like a hike that is entertained by many like daily. It's just select people who know the area, who are aware that it's, falling apart and needs maintenance, but they've done they're not even maintaining it anymore. It's no longer in use. So those are just some things to keep in mind. And then we see, his daughter getting her senior pictures on that bridge. It's just very bizarre. So some of these notes are from the police transcripts with Keegan Kline on August 18th, 2020. So it says, okay, so it starts with police, and the police officer is talking to Keegan. Right. You talked to her and you admitted to talking to her. And then it says, Kline says, I don't think I ever did, though. I think I talked to one of her friends, like I told them. Police, you admitted you talked to her for a few hours at a sleepover, and then you blocked her because she was annoying you, remember? Kline, you're right, yeah. Police, you remember that? Kline, yeah. A couple pages later in the transcript, the troopers confront Kline saying that Anthony Schatz was supposed to meet Libby on the Delphi High Bridge the day she died. See, I don't remember ever saying to meet up with me, though, Kline responded. Earlier, the trooper quoted Kline's message to another person after he learned about Libby and Abby's murder, where Anthony Schatz wrote, yeah, we were supposed to meet, but she never showed up. That's a damn lie, Kline said. But police told Kline they believed at least two people had access to the Anthony Schatz account based on the forensic investigation into the syntax or wording used by the account. We have two different people using the messenger, talking to people from our residence, police told Kline. Earlier in the interview, Kline said he gave his password to his account to a lot of people. But in another transcript, given to us by Murder Sheet, Kline speaks to HLN producer Barbara McDonald in a jailhouse interview in December 9th, 2021. In the interview, Kline said his father had access to Anthony Schatz's account. So then it goes into talking about Kline's father and how his father is into underage girls, and how Kline is saying that they're just going to pin all this on his brother or on his father, blah, blah, blah. And the article goes on. I'll link this whole article too, so you guys can reference it if you want. So it says, in the 194-page transcript of the police conversation with Kline, the man was questioned about using Anthony Schatz's account to communicate with Libby the night before her death. Kline told investigators he didn't exchange photos with Libby, but did admit to receiving photos from a friend of hers who was at the same sleepover. According to transcripts, investigators said they knew Libby was speaking to Anthony Schatz at the sleepover the night before she went to the Delphi Trail with Abby. Police said they believed Libby was being groomed by the account. Unfortunately, she was completely enthralled with Anthony Schatz, investigators said in the transcripts. The transcripts also revealed that police told Kline he failed a polygraph test when he asked if he knew who killed Abby and Libby. Also, that he deleted search history on his phone between the dates February 10th and February 15th, 2017. The transcripts also revealed he used another persona, Emily Ann, to message underage girls and ask them questions like, my dad asked your age limit. Kline also said his father was freaking out when Kline told him in February of 2017 that detectives said Kline was a suspect in the Delphi murders. Libby's cell phone captured both an image of a man approaching her on the high bridge and a recording as the man told the girls to go down the hill. Kline told McDonald his father weighs 280 pounds, that he is a deer hunter and was robust enough to walk through the woods and strong enough to retrieve a deer. The Indiana State Police issued a statement stating they want to make it clear that they do not release this information. This is an ongoing investigation, and out of respect of that, the ISB declined to comment on this time. Indiana State Police investigators continue to seek additional transcripts. So that was a little bit of some notes I wanted to read. There's another article too that I think has important information, and I wanted to thank Allison Faye for sending me these articles. And thank you to all my moderators. You guys are awesome, and I really do a lot of my own research, but you guys help out a lot and steer me in the good direction and good sources. So I just wanted to give it a minute and thank you all. And thank you everyone who has joined since we started. I'm looking at chat right now. Hello, single mom of 4, Connie, Peach, good to see you guys. Allegedly with Brittany, thank you so much for the super chat. That's so kind of you. And good morning. I hope you're having a good day so far. So happy you are covering the Delphi case. Yeah, it's like I said in the beginning of the stream. Hang on, let me turn my camera on and talk to you. So I've been following this case, but strictly through like headlines. It hasn't been anything obviously that I've deep dove into, but it's definitely a case that's been on my radar. And obviously I just want justice for these 2 girls, and just the whole aspect of it being linked to like a fake social media account and all that. Like, this is the type of true crime case that I feel like we really need to get a grasp on, and an understanding of how to prevent this one in the future, because social media is just a dangerous element when it's used inappropriately. And these girls were very young, and unfortunately it's not their fault that they were young and naive. We've all been there. They didn't know better in a way, like she thought she was talking to that model. And it's so tragic, really. But this other article I do want to read from before we carry on, because it does have really interesting stuff. So it's titled, FBI says their bodies were moved and staged in the Delphi murders, and the suspect took their clothing. So give me a second, have some coffee, and hello again, everybody. Right, Peach. She said, sadly, it's so common for young kids to be taken advantage of online. I agree. And it was always dangerous when I was a kid. I mean, we didn't have like Snapchat and Instagram, but I remember, going to a friend's house, their age, and sitting there in chat rooms. And, the mom of my friend's house was just right over in the kitchen, and we're over on the computer, being naughty in a way, like pretending to be somebody else in these chat rooms. And it's just entertaining, but it's a fine line of entertainment and fun with your friends, and then, danger. So it says, hang on, let me read this. FBI investigators believe the bodies of Abby and Libby were moved and staged at the Delphi murder scene, according to court documents. The FBI, hold on, blah, blah, blah. And then this is talking about the 9-page warrant and documents that were leaked earlier this year, which we mentioned in some of the videos I'll play. So I'm just going to skim over this. Okay, so it says, a large amount of blood was lost by the victims at the scene, the document states. Because of the nature of the victim's wounds, it is nearly certain the perpetrator of the crime would have gotten blood on his person and clothing. It's been known for years that the girls' bodies were found on the property of the then 77-year-old Ronald Logan, who is now dead. New details have emerged on the day of the murders and about his whereabouts. They also revealed that Logan's phone puts him near the old Monon High Bridge, and that Logan's former lover thought he was involved. Oh, I never knew that. And the crime scene appears to have been tampered with by somebody. The document says authorities also found that 2 articles of the clothing from one of the girls was missing from the crime scene, while the rest of their clothing was recovered. It's also appeared the girls' bodies were moved and staged. The agent goes on to say, based upon my training and experience, and it is common for perpetrators of this type of crime to take a souvenir or in some fashion memorialize the crime scene. The agent also references the video on Libby's phone where the suspect says, guys, down the hill. She confirms the full video is 43 seconds long. Only a few seconds have been made public. The agents also confirms the girls were followed by the suspect on the Monon High Bridge Trail in Delphi, and that there were no visible signs of a struggle or fight. So let me just pause the reading for 1 second, because this part I just want to soak in and think about again. So it's talking about how the video that Libby took is 43 seconds long. Public has only seen a very small portion. And then it says, right after that, it says the agent also confirms the girls were followed by the suspect, on the Monon High Bridge Trail in Delphi. So does that mean that they're kind of describing the rest of the 43-second video and that it's him following them? What do you guys think about that? Yeah, Down the Hill just isn't the same to me since this came out. I know. How is there a lot of blood but no sign of a struggle? Right. Well, if they were staged, they're thinking that they were moved to the crime scene. I'm thinking if there was going to be a sign of struggle, maybe it was somewhere else, and they don't know, maybe. It does sound that way, yes. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? So I'm just trying to envision her taking this video and it's showing him following them. Okay, let me continue on. So blah, blah, blah. Let me go back. The agent also confirms the girls were followed by the suspect on the bridge trail in Delphi and that there were no visible signs of a struggle or fight. Investigators were seeking a judge's permission to search the property of Ronald Logan, who owned the land where the two girls were found dead on. It describes his activity the day the girls went missing. So then it goes into Logan. I'm not really concerned with him. He's dead. I don't think that a perpetrator would leave the victims' bodies on his property, but I could be wrong. Show of hands, how many are thinking that Logan, who is dead now, was involved? If you do, press 1. If you don't, press 2. Let me read on. Okay, that was the end of that article. But very interesting, to say the least. All that. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of 2s. Honestly, don't know. 1, 2. Alrighty, so let me carry on.
Finally having a breakthrough in the...
And top my coffee off real quick, guys. So, as many of you know, and have, for those who watched the press conference, give me a second. I kind of clipped in the one part that I found interesting. And I can't even take credit for this little segment because I was watching it on Gray Hughes and it was just like, oh, wow. I didn't even notice that the first time. So what I did was record this one part, bring it into my editing program, turn up the volume so we could kind of hear like the media person ask a question. So that's what this is right here. So give me 1 second to kind of play it. But pretty much they ask, how does Keegan Kline fit into everything?
Point to have an opportunity in court to explain the evidence and for that not to be tarnished or tainted or anything like that. Again, he's presumed innocent. And so it was important for me in this case to do that. Hold on just a minute. We're not going to comment on that right now. It's part of the investigation.
So that was pretty much it. We're not going to comment on that now. It's part of the investigation. And then he kind of stops the conversation. Somebody else comes up to the microphone. Just very interesting, because if he wasn't involved, in my opinion, you would think that that wouldn't be the answer. Like, he wouldn't be human need to protect it. And in those articles that we read, when it spoke about Logan, it said he's dead and that was it. You know what I mean? They didn't really comment on, but we feel he was part of the investigation. You know what I mean? So I'm just thinking, like, by them saying he's part of the investigation is significant. Oh, insanely confused. Enjoy your day. Hi, yep. Good to see you. Marshall Dove said, will not be outed. Others involved. All has to do with the catfishing, drop boxes, pics. What else could it be? Too many coincidences and connections with sketchy people. Yep. Oh, Klein, in my opinion, was the one to set up the scene. Oh, definitely seems like there's more than one perpetrator involved. Logan was the best place to direct outrage in absence of the real killer. Like a red herring, you think, Caroline? I just don't think Ellen is acting out alone. I think a lot of people are there with you, single mama 4. Actually, press 1 if you think there's another person involved. Press 2 if you think that Richard Allen acted alone. And I will switch screens while you guys do that. So 1 is if he had, or wait, yeah, 1 is if he had somebody help him. 2 is Richard acted alone. And I will switch up my screen, and thank you all for being here. Let's just go and play, like I said, the highlights of the press conference. It's only like 3 minutes long because the whole clip, you know, it was not everything we wanted to see. It was just a lot of talking. So let's play this one. Just to have it on record on my channel, I do want to play this. So I know you guys have probably already seen it, but it's only 3 minutes, and I just want it in our files for the case, okay?
Seldom do I have prepared remarks, but today is different because I do not want there to be any confusion.
Why is Guy Fieri in the neighbor's kitchen?
Okay, this ad is like 15 seconds long. So anyways, let's just go to chat while we're waiting for this ad to pass. Oh, wait a minute. Also, I want to play the interview with the grandparents, Libby's grandparents too. So that's 8 minutes long. I'll play that after this, okay?
But today is different because I do not want there to be any confusion or ambiguity with what I will say. Today is not a day to celebrate, but the arrest of Richard M. Allen of Delphi on 2 counts of murder is sure a major step in leading to the conclusion of this long-term and complex investigation. I am proud to report to you that today, actually last Friday, was the day, and an arrest has been made. Thanks to literally hundreds of media outlets that have been steadfast in reporting and keeping the memories of Abby and Libby front and center.
The date Abby and Libby went missing. One of those dates was last Friday, October 28, 2022. At that time, we had gathered evidence to formulate a PC that we submitted to the court, and the judge did find probable cause for an arrest of Richard Allen. He's been charged with 2 counts of murder for the murder of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. This investigation is still very ongoing. We're keeping the tip line open, the tip email open. We encourage everybody to continue to call in tips, not only about Richard Allen, but about any other person that you may have. For that reason, and for the nature of this case, the probable cause and the charging information has been sealed by the court. I've been very clear to everybody that per the court order, we cannot talk about the evidence that's in the probable cause or the evidence that's in the charging information. That will become evident to you at some point and it'll be released, but right now is not that day. Today's about Abby and Libby, focusing on them. Mr. Allen has had his initial hearing. He's entered a preliminary plea of not guilty. The matter's been set for a pretrial on January 13th at 9 a.m., 2023, and a trial date of March 20th, 2023 at 9 a.m. He is presumed innocent. We will have an opportunity and day in court when we can present the evidence that we have against him. But until that day, he is presumed innocent.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage,
Okay, let me share the interview with Libby's grandparents. And thank you again, everyone, for being here. Please hit that likes button or subscribe. That is a free way to support the channel. And for those who sent the super chat, Brittany, thank you so much. It's much appreciated. So, guys, this is Libby's grandparents' interview.
So, Mike.
Kind of just reiterate really what Doug had alluded to, as well as I really do appreciate the media. Some of you have come to know, or we've come to know over the last 5.5 years, and you've really been very helpful to us and keeping the names out there, keeping this case alive. Very appreciative of that. And while this is another chapter in this whole story that in our lives that we're going through right now, I want to make sure that we continue that, right? The next chapter is now we're onto the prosecution side, right? And let's keep that open out there, keep that flowing, keep the information coming in. I want to make sure we get as much information for the investigators and specifically the prosecutor, specifically at this time moving forward. So with all your guys' help, we keep the information out there and keep the girl's name out there. And again, any information pertaining to anything with this case, obviously with the person arrested, but anything at all, please call that in. Please turn those tips in, because I want to make sure that that's how we support as a family, right? Is keep it out there, asking for help, and you guys carry that message back out there for us, and we are so appreciative of that. But let's stay on top of that and keep pushing forward, because we got another hill to climb, and we're going to get to the top of it. But we certainly are.
Mike, do you ever feel that the suspect could be a neighbor, could be somebody you know?
Well, Doug Carter said that early on, if you recall. He said he's hiding in plain sight, and that's the case. I don't know the gentleman personally at all, so I've probably seen him, but it's a small county, but definitely I don't know him.
How does it your heart, sir, when the last couple of weeks when you heard of a suspect and now an arrest, and you tell me it's been so long?
It's somewhat bittersweet, knowing that while it allows us to move to the next turn or the next chapter, we still got a big mountain ahead of us, and we're going to stay after it. We haven't ever given up, and you guys haven't given up on us, and we're going to keep pushing all the way.
There's a lot of information that can't be shared, obviously, at this time. So why is it important to continue with the integrity of the investigation?
I want to make sure that we have everything we possibly need and more. I don't want to leave any stone unturned.
Becky, how are you? Do you have anything that you want to add? Sorry. Hi. What went through your heart when you heard? They told you on Friday, correct? Is that when they?
Well, we were called in on Wednesday and told that they had detained somebody. So we've had a couple more days to process this. I don't feel like I thought I would. I've always said that I would be screaming on the rooftops, but we're not. It's sad. While there's somebody that's been arrested, there is, our lives for 5.5 years have been in a search mode, and that's what we've done. And you get up and it's like, oh, we're not doing that anymore. So we're all just kind of feeling our way and figuring out what our purpose is now. What do we do next? How do we help? That's what we want to know, is how do we help now to make sure we have the right person, to make sure there's a conviction, to come to a total final resolution.
Ma'am, are you all fearful that someone else was involved in this that is still at large?
That's certainly a possibility, and that's why we're keeping it open out there, right? That's why the investigators answered that question as well, is the tip line remains open. So any information pertaining to this case, that's certainly, I want to get that to the investigative team and let them vet that out.
You're fearful that person or those people might have had a role in the actual crime itself?
I don't know any of that information. what you're asking.
Do you think there's anybody in this town that knew about this and kept their mouth shut?
I don't know. That would be speculation, really. I mean, what do you think?
It's a small town.
Sure is.
A lot of people who know each other.
I just want to pause it there and answer Christy B's question. I'm not sure where Libby's parents are. I do know that her grandparents were the ones that raised her. But beyond that, I don't know that background information. But it's good to see you. Thanks for being here. And yeah, I think that somebody had mentioned earlier in chat that maybe there's a group of them that were passing around pictures, etc., sharing the account. I definitely think that's a high possibility and probability.
Yeah, I'll save those words when I see him face to face.
Hey, Mike. Hey, sorry, we got here. I guess how's it feel to know that this guy, nationwide search, this guy was found down the street from where you guys have frequented and gone before?
Well, it's not an area that I really frequent, but I mean, your point is yeah, it's definitely, that's why we said never stop searching anywhere, because we didn't know where he was. And like I said, Doug Carter had made mention of that, is he could be living right amongst us, hiding in plain sight. And that's what came.
Tell me just how you're feeling.
No, I'll save that for when I see him face to face.
So what went through your heart and your mind when those charges were read?
It was a kind of bittersweet, you know, it's I just know that there's another job, another hill for us to climb ahead of us, but we're up for the challenge. We're going to keep after it. We're not going to stop.
Why is it important to keep the tip line alive at this point?
Because I want every stone unturned, every bit of information that's out there pertaining to this case. I want the investigative team to have that information.
How confident are you that the police have their man?
That's what the courts will decide, right? But I'm confident. I've always had confidence in the investigative team.
What keeps you hopeful?
Yes, I'm hopeful.
What keeps you hopeful?
The faith and the strength of our family, and the fact of I know how hard the investigative team has worked, and they're nonstop.
Who asked that?
Yep.
Who asked that?
Back here.
Oh, I wanted to speak about your faith because I know it was important to you.
If it were your child, would you have an option not to be hopeful?
No, absolutely not.
That's why we're hopeful.
Of course.
You all,
Okay,
can I just ask you one question? Maybe you can put a rumor to rest or something. There's a report going around right now that this Mr. Allen actually processed some photos for the family at the CBS. Do you know if that's accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay, and that he didn't charge the family when they came in to claim the photos?
That is correct.
Okay, and you know that firsthand. We are always careful to be accurate.
All right, one more question.
We know that the media coverage of this has been fair.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You guys in the media have been certainly more than fair. I mean, don't get me wrong. We've had our share of shots taken at us, and that's fine. And hopefully those people will now be able to reflect in the mirror and say, oh, you know, maybe that wasn't the case. So, you know, reservations and things like this is always the better case, right? This is the better judgment. We all know that, and that's just how we are, right? I don't cast judgment on something until I know for sure. And
okay, thank you, folks.
that's what we're at. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Ma'am, thank you so much. I know this isn't easy. I appreciate it.
Oh, wait a minute.
I'm really
didn't
sorry.
mean that bad.
No, I really didn't do that.
Okay, so now let me switch screens. This court TV segment is like an hour long. I'm going to speed it up just one notch. We should still be able to comprehend everything they're saying. But yeah, it's a lot of information. I want to share it with you guys. We can watch it together. I haven't watched this yet. I just seen that it was posted last night. But I'm going to play it and then I'll pause it here and there for fair use purposes and talk about what you guys are saying in chat, okay? So who has seen this segment last night on Court TV? Press 1 if you have, and if you haven't, let me know as well too. Like press 2 if you have not seen this. This is new. It looks like 9 hours ago. But I do want to just play it through and then probably end things.
Two teenagers were good friends and had the day off from school. The weather was unseasonably warm. But when Libby and Abby did not show up when they were supposed to get picked up, their families began to worry, and they began to search. The next day, the bodies of these two young girls were found, both victims of murder. Then over the course of the next 5 years, there were no answers, no arrests, just a series of disjointed clues, like two sketches that looked nothing alike, a video of the suspected killer, and a short audio recording of his voice. Then things got even stranger when police said they were looking for anyone connected to an Anthony Schatz social media account, which was not connected to the male model in the photos. Then the man behind that account was arrested for child pornography. But still, there were no arrests for the double murder until now. Today, investigators made the official announcement, fighting off the tears and the emotion that has driven this case.
Today is not a day to celebrate, but the arrest of Richard M. Allen of Delphi on 2 counts of murder is sure a major step in leading to the conclusion of this long-term and complex investigation.
So who is this alleged killer? What did he look like? Where is he from? Tonight, all the latest information from the dramatic announcement of an arrest in the Delphi murder case.
How does Popeye's chicken sandwich get so crunchy, juicy, and tasty? We make everything with love.
It took a long time to get here. A long time. But it's happened. It has happened. And today was the day where the official announcement was made that, yes, there was an arrest. Well, let's take a step back for a minute and remember what this is truly about, an unimaginable loss. 2 young girls young teenagers, what would they be doing now? Where would they be? What would they be looking to do with the rest of their lives? All that is gone. Gone, disappeared. Because someone chose to take their lives, to rob them of their futures, and then put two families through this incredibly awful process.
Let me just pause it real quick. How did the perpetrator know that once he said, guys down the hill, how did he know that they were going to listen? Has that ever stumped anyone? Like, what if they decided no, and then ran away? Was he going to run after them?
Of looking for a killer and seeking justice, and all along carrying with you that void that now exists in your life for the rest of your life. The loss, the unimaginable loss of these 2 girls. This is a case that transformed from, I don't want to say simple murder, there are no simple murders, but from a local investigation into a true crime mystery. And it is something that went around the globe and around the globe again. And for 5 years, people talked about it. People wrote about it. People did podcasts about it. Shows like ours continued to cover the story because there was no arrest, which meant a couple of things. One, no answer, no justice for the families, fear in the community. Actually, it's even more. And it comes to a point where there is a killer on the loose. And think about that and the prospect of someone who would go take the lives of these 2 young girls still being out there. And imagine living there and having a child. Luckily, though, and part of this is that because this became a true crime mystery and everyone continued to talk about it, not forget it, put it in the headlines, put it online, put it on the local news, put it on the national media, this was never a cold case. Never became a cold case. And investigators reminded us of that all the time. And they would release different clues, little bits and pieces. But the way they were doing this investigation is they didn't want to give it all up because they felt somehow that would impede their ability, but they wanted to give a...
That's what I'm thinking too, Beagle Mama. Possible CP with snuff film recorded, and they are now searching for it. I mean, what else? Especially when you connect Anthony Schatz account and those images, and then we hear about the crime scene just being completely bloody and that it was staged. I do think that there's film, and that's what this was. And we learned all about snuff films in the Summer Wells case and those theories. So, that's what I was thinking for sure when I had heard more details and all this. And I think that might be on the right track. Sadly, it's terrible, terrible, terrible. The dark web is obviously dark for a reason. Yeah, 444 in chat. Please give me a thumbs up. Thank you. Allegedly with Brittany J. Appreciate that.
Enough to keep it alive, to keep the interest, to keep the tips coming in, people paying attention to what's going on, not letting it go cold. And it never did. And that's why today we had this announcement that someone was arrested. And this does a lot for the families of Libby and Abby, obviously. But it gives hope to others, other families who have been suffering around the nation. We cover all these stories. And for all of them, there's two lessons here that are so incredibly important. One is the media is not the enemy when it comes to unsolved murders, missing people, not the enemy at all. Use us. Please use us. Let us tell the story. Let us remind people. Let us shake the trees up a little bit to see if a leaf is going to fall down. How many times have we covered trials here where it was a podcast that suddenly caught fire and then everyone was talking about it and then someone talked who knew something and all of a sudden there's an arrest? It can happen.
And I just have to pause what Vinny's saying right there and kind of point it in the direction of other cases that we're covering, the Quentin Simon case, people speaking out to YouTubers. I mean, Vinny just said right here, how many times have we covered something and somebody says something and it's vital to the case. So I definitely think that mainstream media and interviews and with the perpetrators and suspects and people involved, it seems as though on record something could slip and it could be useful. So I just think it's interesting how Vinny was saying that. So just think about what he's saying and use it in reference to, other cases we're covering with people speaking to YouTubers. Like there's no reason why it's okay for these people to speak to mainstream media, but they can't speak to our channels. I think that we do a good job with interviewing people for sure. Like I haven't done any in my channel, but I know that we've broken down interviews that, Chris McDonough has done and other people. So yeah, I think that was a word of encouragement for YouTubers there.
Why today we had this announcement that someone was arrested. And this does a lot for the families of Libby and Abby, obviously. But it gives hope to others.
Hi, Delana.
Other families who've been suffering around the nation. We cover all these stories. And for all of them, there's two lessons here that are so incredibly important. One is the media is not the enemy when it comes to unsolved murders, missing people, not the enemy at all. Use us. Please use us. Let us tell the story. Let us remind people. Let us shake the trees up a little bit to see if a leaf is going to fall down. How many times have we covered trials here where it was a podcast that suddenly caught fire and then everyone was talking about it and then someone talked who knew something and all of a sudden there's an arrest? It can happen. It absolutely can happen. I think everyone knew it was going to happen in this case. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. The when was longer than we thought, but it happened. Today was the day. And other families out there should retain that hope, and investigators and departments around the nation should keep the case alive as well. Don't let it go cold. Give us updates. That's what they did in this case. Little piece here, little piece there. Just enough to keep the public aware, to give hope to those families. Let's take a listen now to the state superintendent who was emotional today, the sheriff, and also the DA, the prosecutor, all speaking today about this arrest. I mean, this is a very big day.
Today is not a day to celebrate, but the arrest of Richard M. Allen of Delphi on 2 counts of murder is sure a major step in leading to the conclusion of this long-term and complex investigation. I am proud to report to you that today, actually last Friday, was the day. We are going to continue a very methodical and committed approach to ensure that if any other person had any involvement in these murders in any way, that person or persons will be held accountable. I really believe that Abby and Libby would be proud of you for standing strong, even in the face of immense pressure and perpetual criticism. And I hope you have found just a bit of peace in this most complicated world. I stand before you in this church and very place where we held our first briefing nearly 6 years ago, and just hours after the murders of Abby and Libby. Right here. Pulling in today, I wasn't really sure what emotion I would experience, but peace came over me. I didn't expect that to happen. And I hope all of you, with all the different responsibilities you have from around the planet today, have felt some of that as well. What we all have experienced proves that together there's nothing we cannot do. But more importantly, giving of ourselves, all of us,
Why are these so bad?
giving of ourselves matters more than what we could ever receive. Abby and Libby, though in death, have had a profound effect on so many of us, on how we live, and as importantly, who we all should be.
I believe in a God of justice and righteousness. Today, I believe that same God has provided us justice for Abby and Libby. There are many dates in a lifetime that you're going to remember. The date your children are born, the date you're married, the date you buy a first house, the date Abby and Libby went missing. One of those dates was last Friday, October 28th, 2022. The day's about Abby and Libby, focusing on them.
You could feel that emotion, not even being there. But let's bring in Court TV Crime and Justice correspondent Matt Johnson, who's joining us live tonight from Delphi, Indiana. He was there for all of this. I have some questions for you, but first, can you talk about just what we just saw and what we just heard, and bring a sense of the emotion? Is that what I mean, that's what I was taking from this, that this was like very personal, and this was raw emotion from investigators and prosecutors and sheriffs.
Yeah, hey, Vinny. And you know what? It's kind of still a mystery on this Halloween night, right? And you had that room full of people, journalists from all across the country, no doubt. And also church members, you had people from the community, you had people that drove into town to be there because they're so invested in this case. At one point, I thought it was going to be standing room only. You had the family members sitting there listening, not getting a whole lot of answers. We still don't know the why, but we might just know the who because of this arrest. And what do we know about him, right, Benny? So we know his name, Richard Allen, 50 years old, lived in this community, Delphi, Indiana, small town for quite some time. Charged with 2 counts of murder. We know that for the little girls. Worked at a local pharmacy here in town, and he was married, and he also had a daughter of his own. Take a look at this video. We went to that pharmacy where he has worked, and we've confirmed that. We went to the pharmacy. They said no comment when we went inside. There was a security guard in place. We're told that there was actually a poster of the suspect hanging inside at one point near where he worked, where he interacted with people. This store is located at the bridge entrance, that trail entrance, not too far from there. CBS, we reached out to them. Again, they confirmed that in fact he did work there. They released this statement. In part, it reads, "As members of the Carroll County community, we remain devastated by these murders, and our hearts go out to German and Williams' families. We are shocked and saddened to learn that one of our store employees was arrested as a suspect in these crimes. We stand ready to cooperate with police in investigating in any way that we can." After the news conference, Libby German's grandparents, Mike and Becky Patty, they had an interaction. They said that they had an interaction with him at some point at the store, and they talked to reporters about it. Take a listen.
There's a report going around right now that this Mr. Allen obviously processing photos for the Venmo. Do you know if that's accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay, and that he didn't charge the family when he was claiming the photos?
That is correct.
Okay.
They were having photos developed for the funerals of little Abby and Libby. It was for their funerals. And so he said, sure, you don't have to pay for these photos. That was the interaction. It's just really creepy.
Creepy, chilling. I did not realize it was
It's unbelievable.
Photos for the funeral. That is wow. And just nonchalantly. And you know, the other part of this, you know, you're there. I mean, it's a small town. So chances were, and I think throughout all this, the family was wondering, you know, do I know this person? Is this someone that I've interacted with? And the answer is yes.
The answer is yes. And, you know, this is pretty much the town right here behind me. This is the town square. This is the county seat, which makes it unusual as well because it is such a small town. This is the courthouse where he may stand trial right here behind me. And tonight on Halloween, other families are celebrating. These 2 families are not because they still are searching for answers.
I just want to pause it real quick and kind of take in that whole, processing the photos that they used at the funeral for them, and how he, didn't charge them. And then we talk about the theory of snuff film. And, obviously that's a form of videography too. And now we got him processing photography photos at his job. It's just not out of the realm of possibility that his daytime nice guy side of him is this normal guy, goes to the pub like they said, or we talked about earlier in the stream, pharmacy tech. His wife, I believe, is a vet tech. The only things on his record, no criminal history, but there were, I think, a seatbelt violation and a speeding ticket that he had. Just looks very normal. But then, the dark side of him is, he's not processing photos at CVS. He's processing some other type of videography, possibly, if you guys get where I'm saying. It's just like a whole opposite. It's just a dark side and a light side, and they're very closely intertwined.
And they are not able to celebrate an American holiday with their kids. And, I said this earlier today, and police pretty much paraphrased it this way too. This was a monster living in plain sight in this small town. And so, to have this news drop on Halloween was something as well.
Absolutely.
It's just surreal. Yeah.
Not ready for a laser? Clinique Smart Clinical Repair delivers the same.
So, any other reaction that you came across today, either from the family, from the community, to what happened here and what the announcement is? And is it true that the family knows as little as we know at this point, or do we know if they've been privy to more information?
I know that you've interviewed family members quite a lot over the past couple of years. I have too, even before working with Court TV with my podcast. And, all along the way, they said pretty much we know what the public knows. They've been so tight-lipped in this investigation, like they were today. The arrest affidavit, it's sealed. We're not going to get any details as to the motive in this or cause of death, at least for now. And family members, they were expected to talk at this news conference, but they didn't. They were all seated some of them in the front rows. I interacted with a few in the back. We're all respectful. We didn't ask them questions, but it was Libby's grandparents that did want to address the media because they wanted to say thank you to a lot of people. And they also said this, take a listen.
I want to make sure we get as much information to the investigators and specifically the prosecutor, specifically this time moving forward. So with all your guys' help, keep the information out there and keep the girl's name out there. And again, any information pertaining to anything with this case, obviously with the person arrested, but anything at all.
I just want to pause it real quick and kind of comment on Kay Danielle's comment, which is a very fair, observation. I'm surprised his wife didn't recognize him from the video, the down the hill video and, the bridge video. And it's like, it just is mind boggling in a way. And it has made me even wonder, was there a time when he's at work and feds show up at the house or wherever the wife is in private, and they kind of like bombard her? Again, this is just me watching so many mob movies and Sopranos. I don't know if this is what happened, but we don't have the real connection of how police got his arrest. So people have been theorizing, was it the wife that turned him in, or was it Keegan Kline? In my mind and in my scenario, I'm wondering, was she kind of bombarded and said, listen, this is what your husband is. This is what we have on him. We need your help. Or can you wear a wire or something like that? You know what I mean? Or was it something that they got information on that didn't even need the wife's involvement or help? You know what I mean? It could easily be either one of those. Or Keegan Kline decided, you know what? I've been, like allegedly Brittany said earlier in chat, he's been sitting in jail and all that. So now he's deciding to spill the beans. It's just, it can be so many different things, but it when we talk about the wife and his daughter, and it's like, how did they not know? But we've seen in other cases, the spouse didn't know or had any idea, like Gacy and BTK. I mean, even Ted Bundy. There's photos of Ted Bundy with his girlfriend's daughter, and they're just, you know, playing and looking so normal. I mean, Chris Watts, whatever he helped plan and execute, nobody suspected it. Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding us of that. News article said he was not being cooperative. Of course.
Please call that in. Please turn those tips in, because I want to make sure that that's how we support as a family, right? Is keep it out there, asking for help, and you guys carry that message back out there for us, and we are so appreciative of that.
So during that, Vinny, my ears kind of perked up because it's similar to what we just heard, right? It's similar to what state police investigators and also the prosecutors that are handling this case were saying. If there's other people involved in this, we're coming after you. So they're keeping those tip lines open for this case.
And you may get some fresh tips because now you've got someone associated with it. So if anyone knows anything about this guy, about Alan, they'll perhaps come forward and be able to paint a clearer picture for investigators and maybe take them down some roads that they didn't know about before. Before I let you go, how about the community today? As you mentioned, it's Halloween. I know a lot of families are focused on that, but this has been such a big, big part of this community looking for an answer and probably looking to exhale a little bit that a child killer maybe have taken off of the streets of Delphi.
Well, people are bringing us or offering us food. People are saying thank you for being here. Everybody's so invested in this case. This has been something that has ripped this community apart and then brought it back together 3 times over. When my producer and I, Anna, we got into town yesterday and we immediately went to the trail area. And you can see that there are several memorials along the way. There's even a park dedicated to the kids. And then we started talking to a lot of people that started showing up, and they're placing flowers and they're leaving little gifts. And everyone's really emotional. And if you listen to this, you can get a sense of the mood here. Take a listen.
Every time I travel from Logansport to Lafayette, I pass under the Freedom Bridge. I always say a prayer that they find out who did this to those little girls. And everything is, today is the day. Today is the day.
Today is the day is the slogan that they've been using for almost 6 years, 5.5 years. That's the image that you see when you see these memorials. People write it. Kelsey, the sister of Libby, wrote it in a text that we were talking about when she announced that there was going to be an announcement today when the family knew on Friday. And today was the day. Yeah, we didn't get all the answers that we want. I don't know if we ever will. But today...
I really hate that expression. We hear it all the time in true crime. We may never get the answers. And it's like, no, for someone like me. And, you know, you guys, obviously, if you're in here, you love true crime. So we want the answers. And it's always, they said that in an article the other day for the Debbie Collier case. We may never know the real conclusion or something. I'm like, no. That's not going to be, I can't accept that. But yeah, Nurse Bev brings up a really good point. His wife was married for 28 years to him. You'd think she'd know instantly if she saw videos of his voice, like a video of him and his voice and his walk. You know, walks are sort of to each person. You know what I mean?
At least we know that there was an arrest for these murders. So today is the day for this community, Vinny.
Matt Johnson reporting live tonight from Delphi, Indiana. Great job, Matt. Glad you were there and appreciate it. We'll talk again. All right, folks, we've got a lot more to get to. When we come back, we're going to bring in the host of the Murder Sheet podcast. Who have been breaking news on this
it's a unique
years.
walk
Eric
every
Walsh,
person
private
has.
Investigator as well. Also, coming up next hour. In Waukesha, Wisconsin, convicted mass murderer.
And that's the case.
Hiding in plain sight. That's what. The Delphi murders, the man who investigators believe is responsible for the murder of Abby and Libby, his name is Richard Allen. He's in the middle. Those were the sketches that we were dealing with through the years. I don't know, is the nose kind of similar to the one on the right? It's very different than the one on the left. I don't know. But those are two of the clues. But the man in the middle is one who was arrested. Take a look at his home here in Delphi, Indiana. We have some video of that. That's where he lived, apparently with his family, which is, you know, he had a child, he had a wife.
looks like a decent home. You know what I mean? Look at how trimmed, and even the lawn is raked recently with the leaves. Allison Faye said maybe deep down the wife knew, but she didn't want to admit it. I think that that's a high possibility, because even in marriages or relationships where murder isn't involved, there's other things that are involved where the spouse turns the other way and is in denial about. So I think it could definitely be something like that. And I found it interesting that she was a vet tech. You know, in order to take care of animals, that, you know, is such a prestigious and just really caring type of position to put yourself in. You know, the animals need our help, and for her to be that way made me wonder if this is another example of like a narcissist dating and being with an empath, you know, and it's just like two opposites that were attracted, or maybe he manipulated her. And I just want to know more about his childhood and their relationship, pretty much.
Looks pretty normal. Nothing would strike you, right? Just another house in a small town. Let me show you where it's located relative to the Monon High Bridge Trail where Abby and Libby went to. So this is Delphi, Indiana. There you've got his home close to the middle school where the kids went, half a mile away from there. And then about 2.5 miles away from the Monon High Bridge Trail as you take a look there. But that's driving. You know, walking, it's actually even closer if you walked it. Incredibly close to all of us. This is a small town, hiding in plain sight. Let's bring in our guests. Joining us tonight from Indianapolis, Indiana, hosts of the Murder Sheet podcast, Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee back with us, and in Chicago, Illinois, private investigator Erica Morse. Thank you, everyone. So we've got a name now. We've got a photograph. We've got some information about him. What are your thoughts? What's going through your mind tonight, Anya and Kevin, as this new information? You've been so deep inside this case for so long. What's going through your minds tonight?
I think we're feeling a lot of hope right now, and that was something that we saw from the residents at Delphi as well. The fact that police have made this step of going public with this arrest and charging someone with the murders, I mean, is huge. And this is what the families and the community has been waiting for. But I think we weigh that with, there's also so many unanswered questions. And the fact that police are stressing that they still need help and they still need the public to possibly send in tips, and they're still actively investigating, certainly makes us wonder, what else could we be seeing? Is this them trying to tie up loose ends to make it a very strong case for the prosecutor? Or are they suspecting that more people could possibly be culpable somehow in this case?
On every mountain and
Erica, I have one question for you. What your thoughts are? Do you think that they're still investigating and believe others are involved, or do you think they're potentially looking for other victims?
Both, Vinny. I'm an Indiana girl born and raised, and have followed this case very closely. As a matter of fact, I've turned in 2 tips on this case, one from your TV program, actually. And one of the things that has never made sense is that there were too many people involved in the person of interest angle. We had multiple sketches, we had Keegan Kline, we had Ron Logan, and one of my colleagues is extremely insistent that Ron Logan has been involved. Well, I've been talking with people on the ground in Delphi today, because, investigators, advocates, forensics, we're all good friends in the true crime community. And the consensus down there is a reason why the tip line is still being pushed. We expect that other victims could come forward. This man was not only a pharmacy tech, but he was a manager at the CVS. He had clear access to anybody in that town. If my understanding, it's the only pharmacy in that town. And we're also now looking at other cases. Our team has gone back over the weekend and reopened cold case files saying, wait a minute, this makes sense. The timeline adds up. The age adds up. We're not done, Vinny. This is just the beginning.
Let me ask you, Kevin, to me, that chilling detail today, that he had processed the photos for the funeral that Matt just told us about, and the fact that he has access to people who are having photos processed. And then I think about some of the other aspects of this case. It's I don't know where this leads to, but to me, I don't know if that's necessarily, a coincidence.
Yeah, it's downright eerie, because when you take your film in to be developed at the neighborhood drugstore or whatever, you're trusting them with some of your most intimate memories, some of your most important moments in your life that you want to preserve. And you trust them with that. And to find out that the person who is doing that for you might be doing it to search for potential prey is just simply horrifying.
Yeah, Erica, what are your thoughts now?
And see, Vinny just sort of touched on what I was saying a little bit earlier, is if we're talking about a possible like snuff film type of thing, he just pointed out, him having access to the CBS photography and processing people's films. I mean, it's sort of creepy. Whenever back in the day when people did it more before like cell phones and all that, they are looking at your family photos. So it's very interesting and creepy, and just, I do think that we are onto something with the dark web connection there, and what exactly this was about, given the bloodiness of the scene and what we do know about the crime scene, that, he could have been not only using social media accounts like the Anthony Shots one, because, Klein says that multiple people had the access to that account. He could be using his connection at the drugstores processing families' photos as a way to kind of stalk and look at like, oh, this family looks nice, or, this or that. Allison said you could tell by his videos on his wife's Facebook, he's very strange, very creepy. That's disturbing. Yeah. Terrible. Okay, let me continue this, guys.
And again, they're looking for potential connections to others. We still have that information that was out there about this Anthony Shots social media account that somehow is connected to child pornography. This guy's processing photos. I think there are more pieces here to put together somehow, some way.
There absolutely are more pieces to put together, Vinny. I was told by someone on the ground in Delphi that not only was he processing those photos at no charge and told the family no charge, but when family members would come into CVS, Richard Allen was actually seeking them out in the aisles and would go speak with them. And there, all of this stuff doesn't necessarily come to mind right away because these families are traumatized and they don't necessarily remember who they interacted with over the last 5.5 years. And now they're thinking, wait a minute, I remember that conversation. I remember someone coming up to me and paying special attention to me in the aisle.
And remember earlier in the live stream, we read a statement from a local owner or the manager at the pub. And he said that the waitresses said that he was quiet, that he was sort of, he was a regular there, but he was quiet. And then it just makes me think more and more. It's just another example of like a quiet guy, like Chris Watts, quiet guy. Brian Laundrie, quiet guy. Jeffrey Dahmer, quiet guy. The list goes on, and it's like, what? There is something to be said.
This particular predator, enjoyed that interaction to the extent that he put himself in the middle of it and made himself available to the family and police by offering his assistance with these photos. I don't know if you saw that picture of inside the house. That sketch was sitting behind him. I mean, this is someone who was front and center, as police stated, and they always believed, someone who was hiding in plain sight.
And Anya, final word from you on this. The fact that it was someone that was from the town, small town, everyone seemed to think that all along. Was this someone who was on anyone's radar at all?
He certainly wasn't on our radar, Vinny. We first heard the name Richard Allen on Friday when this was basically broken. So, and we've talked to other folks in the media, internet sleuths who studied this very carefully. We haven't found anyone yet who had this name on their list. That doesn't mean.
I'm just going to pause it quick and read some good comments in chat. Thank you guys so much for everything you've been saying. Hammock says, excuse me for the details, but they say he posed the bodies. I mean, he must have took pictures or something. And Kay Danielle said, I wonder what he looked like 5 years ago. Right. Like, did he age over this secret that he's been carrying? Or is it absolutely nothing to him, on a physical appearance type thing? Is it wearing at him, He inserted himself into the family. Yeah, he did. He was part of the search efforts too, right? Thank you guys so much for all your comments. I gotta finish this up. So, but you guys are bringing good feedback in chat as always. So I really appreciate it. Allegedly said there's a site called True Crime Society that lists Klein ratted out Allen as a user of Anthony Shots, and that police have known about him for a while now. I have a link if you want it. Yeah, definitely. Do you want to post it in our Facebook group? And if you guys want to join our True Crime Facebook group, I run it with a few other creators, a Crazy Crime Chick and CDT. and a bunch of wonderful moderators. So it's called Open Discussion on True Crime Cases, and we discuss more true crime there than just here on the channel. So thank you guys so much. Hold on. There was another comment I wanted to read before I carry on. Good morning, all. Just came upon this. Good feed. Thank you. I'm with Murder Sheet Lady. Definitely could be a deep web thing. Something to do with photo processing, stalking. Yeah, it's I think we're onto something. I think everyone's sort of feeling the same type of avenue with that. It's sad and scary. Okay, yeah. Post in the group if you want. Or you can send me it in private message. It's up to you.
Nobody's out there. And it doesn't mean that the investigators didn't have some sort of interaction with him early on. But it certainly seems from what we were hearing that this kind of took everyone by surprise.
And this was the photo that Erica was, oh, it's gone. That was the photo that Erica was talking about. If you look to the top left of the screen, look, there's the sketch. Bottom right, of course, that's your suspect, the defendant. All right. Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee, Murder Sheet Podcast. Keep downloading, folks, because they're going to have much more. It's not over. It is not over. Erica Morse, great to see you tonight as well. Thank you so much for your insight. When we come back, we've got more. We're going to talk to my friend Susan Hendricks from HLN, who spent a lot of time out there covering this story. And Joseph Scott Morgan will join us as well. We'll get his take on today's developments. Don't go over.
I love Joseph Scott Morgan.
We'll be right back.
He's like the medical examiner, forensic pathologist, I want to say, done hundreds, thousands of crime scenes and death scenes. So it should be interesting. I'm watching this for the first time with you guys.
I stand before you in this church and very place where we held our first briefing nearly 6 years ago, and just hours after the murders of Abby and Libby. Right here. Pulling in today, I wasn't really sure what emotion I would experience. But peace came over me. I didn't expect that to happen. And I hope all of you, with all the different responsibilities you have from around the planet today, have felt some of that as well. But remember, we're not done.
Powerful words from Doug Carter, Superintendent of State Police in Indiana today. Again, an arrest in the Delphi murders, Abby and Libby. We may be closer to getting some sense of justice, but not a lot of answers today because, as you heard the superintendent say, they're continuing this investigation. Take a listen here. This is Kelsey German, who spoke with Susan Hendricks from HLN, talking about that day back in 2017.
I remember my last words to them. When they were getting out of the car, I made sure they had sweatshirts, and I told Libby I loved her. What did she say, ma'am? She told me she loved me too, and that she'd see me later.
Wow. Let's bring our guests in. Joining us tonight in Jacksonville, Alabama, professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University, former senior investigator for the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office, and the host of the Body Bags podcast, Joseph Scott Morgan. And here she is, anchor at HLN, Susan Hendricks.
Great to see both Joseph got a haircut. Looks good.
Here. Susan, let me start with you. I know you spoke with Libby's grandparents. Before we get to that, I want to get from both of you your initial thoughts with all of these things developing, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to today. What are you thinking about right now, Susan?
Well, I spoke to Becky. I called Libby's grandmother when I first heard. And she answered the phone and said, I'm at my nephew's wedding. I'm in Ohio. We drove here, but I'm very excited. And I can't believe it, but we don't know what they're going to say. And we don't know exactly who's in custody. So she was still learning this. And then, of course, we hear this. And I was at the press conference in April, May of 2019. And I remember the superintendent, Doug Carter, in the room saying, we believe he's a local. We believe he's hiding stateside. We believe he's in this room, but not answering many questions. So there's so much speculation and so much buildup before today. When I heard it, I just had a feeling that maybe they wouldn't divulge all the information. And so they didn't. And he did say, I know there's a lot of frustration, but we are moving to the next step. And I did feel for the families because they just want to hear, look, we got the guy, it's over. And they didn't hear that.
Joseph Scott Morgan, your thoughts tonight in everything that has developed since Friday when you texted me with the breaking news.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I was thrilled. We've been at this for a long time, and that's nothing compared to what the family has gone through. But we have borne witness to this, every single year. We hold out hope. And for me, I think the biggest takeaway today in particular, first off, let me say, I believe that there is going to be a tremendous amount of physical evidence in this case. And the fact that the superintendent said that the lines are still open, that they're still seeking more information. Vinny, I think that kind of dovetailing with one of your earlier guests, I think that the fact reflectively, once the dust is settled, people are going to begin to think about interactions. And it's going to be one of those moments, perhaps, where there will be this tipping point where a lot of more information is going to come out, and they'll be able to put this calculus together, if you will. Because right now it's been very scattered for all of us. A lot of speculation has run rampant over years. You know, the stories that you hear, the things that you hear. But in this particular case, I think that they are still seeking information. I think that that's important, and this mosaic is going to be massive when they're done with it.
All right, Susan, you spoke with Libby's grandparents about 10 minutes ago?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a few minutes ago. And I could just tell I've gotten to know them through the years, lucky enough to know them, just the resilience and how strong they have been through this. And Mike has told me, look, what keeps me going is saying good morning to a picture of Libby in my hallway every single morning and thinking about the last few minutes of what she went through at the end of her life. And he said, look, we thought it would be much different, that we'd be jumping from the rooftops. And Becky said to me, I thought I'd feel elation, but I don't right now. I feel deflated and wonder what my purpose is. Because for so long, Vinny, as you know, close to 6 years, that has been it. They've been handing out flyers, been handing out bracelets, getting the word out, saying, we need your help. Please call in, give us the tips. We need to know. And now that there's someone in custody, they are happy, but they also feel a sense of sadness, as you would imagine. And as you saw, you played that video of Kelsey and I that was in her car, and she drove me from her home to the bridge where she dropped off Abby and Libby. And she has said in the past, look, I wish I was a mean sister that day. She feels guilt. Of course, it's not her fault. She said, I wish it was even colder, right? You go back and say, coulda, shoulda, woulda. She dropped the girls off that day. It was about a 3-minute drive from her home, not knowing, saying, I love you, that would be the last time she'd ever see her sister and Abby again.
Susan and Joseph Scott Morgan staying with us. We've got more to talk about, plus coming up next hour.
On the docket tonight in Broward County, Florida, the sentencing of another
Take a look at what happens here. That's him in the passenger seat. Doesn't look happy.
Save on your new mattress during the Veterans Day sale.
Looks like whatever he's doing, all of a sudden he stops doing, sort of closes up the little file folder, wherever he's working on there. Probably not good. And take a look at his jacket. Does that jacket look like the jacket from the Down the Hill guy? Let's bring back in our guest, still with me, Professor of Forensics, Jacksonville State University, Joseph Scott Morgan, and HLN anchor Susan Hendricks. What are your thoughts about that, Joseph? When you see him in the front of that crack, kind of weird, right? That's another weird video. Like he's doing something, all of a sudden his wife shows up. And he goes like this.
Yeah. And to, marrying up with what you said, he was not very happy about that moment in time. And, Vinny, I think that we're going to see quite a bit of things, quite a few things that are going to be connecting whoever did this to these heinous crimes. Right now, beginning to think about that, we've had this video evidence and also the sound evidence for some time now. And keep in mind, please, that's only a very small portion of what they actually
Let me ask you this. If they had released a longer piece of that video, would someone like his wife or someone who worked with him at CVS be better able to recognize him? Because it was just that short little video. It looked like he was doing some of this down the hill. Do you think that may have delayed things? Like maybe a little more video and maybe.
It's hard to say. You don't know what the quality of it is, but there are people that do what's referred to as gait analysis. Also, I can almost bet you dollars to donuts that they have had a linguist that has been involved in this case, probably associated with feds that specialize in listening to voices, trying to track down the kind of regional.
And we talked about it earlier in the live stream, and they do have federal resources that they did use for the voice analysis here.
Context for this that's been floating around for some time as well. But again, people are frustrated over the fact that not more was released today.
Yeah.
However, they're walking a very fine line here, Ben, with what they can and cannot release. We still have other hearings that are coming up specific to this matter.
Absolutely. So, Susan, you spent so much time out there, spoke to the people in the community and the family and everything else. What do you think about the fact that, it took 5 years, they had video, they had audio?
Hi, Mike.
Now that we know it was someone who was right in the town, that maybe it could have moved things along a little quicker?
Yeah, and I think the superintendent called it back in 2019 saying, we've changed direction. We believe he's hiding in plain sight. And boy, was he right there. CVS And with this, as you both know, there was so much. I mean, when you get a case where you see the suspect walking, his voice, Libby was brave enough to hit record on her phone, and Mike told me, her grandfather, look, we thought that maybe she thought she'd come home and say, Grandpa, look at this weird guy on the bridge that we saw. Hit record, heard his voice, and still a town of less than 3,000 people, cut that in half, 1,200 guys, and still no one suspected this guy.
That is unreal. Justice Scott Morgan, the other thing, this is a fact that bothers me incredibly. We understand that Libby was, they were talking back and forth with this Kagan Klein on this Anthony Schatz social media that morning. Like, you're interacting with a pedophile that morning, an accused pedophile, child pornographer, whatever he is, right? Child pornographer. And then you are randomly attacked by someone else the same morning that you're corresponding with a child pornographer? Like, what are the odds of that?
Slim. And this is what I believe. These perverts like this, they work by networking. They like to share material. And so if that is the case in this particular case, I think that all investigative parties involved will exhaust all of that linkage. And it's not just going to be limited to this particular locale. One curious thing that I found, Vinny, speaking, the superintendent talked about this. Did you notice the term he used in that presser today that was it seemed a bit out of sorts? He talked about global partners. And I found that very interesting. He was thanking people, and granted, they've been contacted from all over, but he said that twice in that presser. It really caught my ear. He talked about, global from the perspective of connectivity with people. And I'm really wondering if that's something that they're not looking into, Ben.
Absolutely. Susan, we have about 20 seconds. I'll give you the final word tonight.
Yeah, calling it to talk in terms of what Justice Scott Morgan was saying, called it a complex investigation, saying we can only give so much information. And I do want to say final words. I'm thinking about Abby and Libby's family members. In that small town, when you're there, you really get the feel of, wow, why can't we find this guy? And we're hoping for justice.
Susan Hendricks, HLN, Justice Scott Morgan, thank you both so much. We'll be right back.
Public radar for more than 5 years, with so many other potential viable suspects for the defense to now point to. What will this murder trial look like? Can prosecutors win?
We will have an opportunity and day in court when we can present the evidence that we have against him. But until that day, he's presumed innocent.
In Waukesha, Wisconsin.
I'm Vinny Politan. Great to have you with us tonight here on Closing Arguments. Big day here at Court TV. Big breaking news out of Delphi, Indiana. Finally, after more than 5 years, an arrest for the murder of Libby German and Abby Williams, those two young teenage girls who were murdered February 13th of 2017. Now, the prosecutor was at the press conference today and spoke. This is the prosecutor who'll be in charge of the case. These are murder charges. We're talking about a double murder trial. Let's take a listen to what the prosecutor had to say.
There are many dates in a lifetime that you're going to remember. The date your children are born, the date you're married, the date you buy a first house, the date Abby and Libby went missing. One of those dates was last Friday, October 28th, 2022. At that time, we had gathered evidence to formulate.
That's a good question, Brittany. I believe Indiana does have the death penalty. And if anyone can correct me on that, let me know in chat or comment down below.
A PC that we submitted to the court, and the judge did find probable cause for an arrest of Richard Allen. He's been charged with 2 counts of murder for the murder of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. This investigation is still very ongoing. We're keeping the tip line open, the tip email open. We encourage everybody to continue to call in tips, not only about Richard Allen, but about any other person that you may have.
Hi, John.
For that reason and for the nature of this case, the probable cause and the charging information has been sealed by the court. I've been very clear to everybody that per the court order, we cannot talk about the evidence that's in the probable cause or the evidence that's in the charging information. That will become evident to you at some point and it'll be released, but right now is not that day. Today's about Abby and Libby, focusing on them. Mr. Allen has had his initial hearing. He's entered a preliminary plea of not guilty. The matter's been set for a pretrial on January 13th at 9 a.m., 2023, and a trial date of March 20th, 2023 at 9 a.m. He is presumed innocent. We will have an opportunity and day in court when we can present the evidence that we have against him. But until that day, he is presumed innocent.
You heard it there from the prosecutor. Yeah, we don't know what the evidence is, what it was that led them to Richard Allen, what led them to this arrest, what led them to charge him with the double murder. So we don't know the prosecutor's evidence, and we'll find out at some point. But I'll tell you what, as we get ready for this trial to happen, I think we have a pretty good idea of some of the defense evidence and where they're going to go in this case. And this, as a former prosecutor, this scares me a little bit in this case. It really does. I don't think it's going to be easy for prosecutors. Again, you have to prove the case beyond any and all reasonable doubt, which means, is there any other potentially reasonable suspect in the case? My goodness. Absolutely, there are some. Now, how reasonable they are in light of the evidence, we don't know because we haven't heard the prosecutor's evidence. But you know where the defense is going to go with this. There's a whole list of people. Let's go through part of that list. Kagan Klein. It starts with him, the guy behind the Anthony Shots social media site, has been charged with child pornography crimes and was actually communicating with Libby before she died. So she's communicating with a child porn collector of sorts. Well, that's what he's accused of being, and you know the defense is going to paint him absolutely that way and use it against him. And he is actually communicating with her through this Anthony Shots social media site. So that's one place they're going to point. How about the guy in the middle, Ronald Logan, who can't even speak to defend himself because he's now dead, but it was his property where the girls' bodies were found. His property. And by the way, when he spoke with investigators, he was lying about his alibi that day and got someone to lie for him. I mean, this is like, throwing softballs to the defense. Libby's communicating with someone who's that day with someone who's brought up on child porn charges. The man who owns the property where they're found lies about where he was that day or who he was with that day. And then you've got the third suspect, James Chadwell, who was from nearby Lafayette, Indiana, was sentenced to prison for kidnapping and attempting to murder a 9-year-old girl. Officials say he lured the girl and locked her in his basement before viciously attacking her. And he was looked into as a suspect in all of this, or looked into as a potential suspect early on in this investigation. So there you have three of them. The one all the way on the right convicted of something very similar. The one in the middle has the property. The one on the left communicating the day that Libby was murdered, and he's into child pornography and trying to get girls to do that? Come on. What is this trial going to look like from what we know right now? How difficult will it be for prosecutors? Let's bring in our think tank. Joining us tonight, in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor. There he is, Al Wunsch III. In Stamford, Connecticut, criminal defense attorney, Darnell Crossland. And in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, family law attorney, Jennifer Brandt, on the program tonight. All right, Al, I'll start with you. How difficult for prosecutors? And what do you think this trial is going to look like with what we know right now about the other potential suspects that the defense can turn into suspects in the trial? Not perhaps suspects by investigators, but by the defense attorneys.
Well, first of all, Ben, happy Halloween to everyone out there. I see Darnell came dressed as he always does as a Prudential insurance salesman. Nice costume. Ben, this is a very interesting case, but we have to wait to see what the evidence is. If the evidence is a slam dunk, I'm not worried about the Three Stooges that they have up there on the wall. Because, quite frankly, if it's a slam dunk, they're going to be able to get that through. The other three, if I'm the defendant, of course, I'm going to be pointing fingers, especially at the dead guy, because that's just the easiest one to kind of put up there, and especially since he had the property, lied about his alibi and things along those lines, and there's no one there that can really, talk to him unless they're going to bring in medium. So under the circumstances, I would be pointing the finger mostly at him, but divesting with the other two might not be a bad idea. But I got a sneaking suspicion that they're holding 4As, and this is going to go down real hard.
Darnell, looking at this case, looking at what this trial is going to be like, what are your thoughts tonight?
Well, good evening. I like the orange tie, Vinny. Happy Halloween. Al looks like an Undertaker, though, with that whole black and black tie, black suit thing. I'm not sure what's happening there. But in terms of this case, this is what troubles me with this case. And Vinny, I think you don't really articulate it too much, but I get a feeling that you're so much in the pursuit of justice for the prosecution that you support these arrests. I, on the other hand, believe that sometimes they arrest people to make the public feel safe, I guess, or satisfied.
It's been almost 6 years, Darnell. There's no rush to judgment here.
No, that's the thing. So after 6 years, if you don't have evidence, and it doesn't get stronger because you arrest someone. So when he says these words, this is very much an open investigation. So how does that jive with, if it's so open that you're arresting someone when it's so open? I don't care if it takes 6 more years. Shouldn't you really decide that you had some good evidence and now you feel good they barely get PC these days. They just get real close to probable cause and find a judge half asleep somewhere to sign off on this stuff, and makes the world feel good. And what happens in that? I think you expressed a little trepidation there, Vinny. I heard it in your voice. We're worried because what happens when they grab these people with no evidence, they get not guilty, and now double jeopardy attaches, and we can never get them again. And so it's very risky. And so I'm not feeling too comfortable with this arrest. But I do think it's a tragedy that took place. I do think that we all agree with that. But rushing to grab someone, even after 5 years, with not that good of evidence, and when he starts saying he's presumed innocent, that's also another dog whistle to say, you know.
I mean, that's the law. That's the Constitution that he's sort of reciting there, Darnell. I don't know if you call the Constitution a dog whistle. All right.
You guys don't throw that out there too much.
We do. We have to. It's our ethical obligation. Jennifer Brandt, it was also nice to see that Richard Allen is wearing orange for Halloween as well. He's locked up. But what do you think about the fact that it took a while here? You know, it took almost 6 years. And Darnell's right. They're saying it's an open investigation. I'm wondering if that means others are potentially involved. I mean, to me, and the other part of that is now anyone who knows this guy can tell authorities and investigators everything they know about this guy.
That's right. Well, Vinny, happy Halloween, Vinny, and happy Halloween to my fellow panelists, Al and Darnell. Vinny, I think that Darnell's got this one wrong. I think that it took 6 years, and I think they have some very strong evidence against this gentleman. I don't think they would have come forward if they didn't. And I think the idea of keeping the tip line open is because there probably are others, or they suspect that there are others involved with him, and they want the public to come forward. Now that they have identified Richard Allen, you know, maybe the tips will be coming forward with others who may be related to this crime. You know, they have that video of the man that Libby had taken at the time of her death or before her death. They have a voice recording. I don't know if they're pinning it on Richard Allen that he's the person in that video, but maybe it's someone related to this. There was some mention when the recording, it said like, meet me down the hill or something like that on the recording. So it sounds like there may have been more than one person involved. And I think that's why the tip line remains open. But I think they must have some very, very strong evidence against this person. No one saw it coming. No one had previously identified him. He wasn't in the list of potential suspects that you put up on the screen. So there was something out there that they found that led them to this man. And I think they've got their suspect, they've got their person, and now they're just trying to see if there are any others involved.
Yeah, Al, hiding in plain sight in this very small town, about 3,000 people in Delphi, Indiana. But I want you to take a listen to Libby's grandmother here talking about interaction that they had with the man prosecutors say killed their granddaughter.
There's a report going around right now.
Make sure to head to Sephora at Kohl's today for all your beauty needs. What I love is that you can actually earn Sephora.
Processing photos for the family. Do you know if that's accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay, and that he didn't charge the family when they came and claimed the photos?
That is correct.
Okay.
Al, this is such a creepy fact that he's worked at CVS, processed the photos for the girls' funerals, processed those photos for the funerals, and they said, no charge. You can have you can just have them. To me, that's a creepy fact. I don't know if that makes its way into the trial, but from my perspective, it really tells the story of how this guy was literally hiding in plain sight.
Literally, you're correct on that, and it is very creepy, especially on Halloween, to see that he's actually handling their photograph of the funeral and things along those, and then giving it to them on the arm free, even more disgusting. It's just you're right. It's a small town, and for this guy to have lasted this long is really the question I have. How did this, in a town like this, how wasn't he thought about to begin with? Why is the investigation taking this? It doesn't seem to me that there were, that many individuals. I mean, they came up with 3, but this guy is just personified people.
I mean, you could have investigated every man in the town by this time. I mean, you could have taken a look at everyone who lives there. He was half a mile from their school, Darnell. He was 2.5 miles from the site where they were, where they went hiking that day and ended up getting murdered. Even less than 2.5 miles if you walked it. What are your thoughts, Darnell, about small town trial? This is the county. Yeah, Delphi is the county seat, by the way. So this case could be tried in this small town.
Yeah, well, stranger things have happened. Today, while we were in court, for the first time in my entire career, the prosecution was making a motion for change of venue, and you guys never make that. We always make that motion. But after the jury was seated, the client told the marshal that he knew some of the people in the jury, and that got back to the judge, and the judge dismissed the whole panel. The prosecution jumps up and makes a motion to change the venue. As to the question with small towns, I find that the psychosis here is that everyone knows everyone, so no one's the bad guy. So no one could believe that Ricky would have done this. No one could believe that Billy could have done this. So there's no suspects because there's no one that in these towns that you could imagine could do something like this. So that's why it's so hard for them to really pick the person, even though you said they could have done it quickly because it's such a small town. But again, somebody's related to someone's brother or cousin, and they don't feel like there's no bad guys there. And so I think that's why the delay is there.
Yeah, Jennifer, the other thing was that we just saw them, there were two sketches that look nothing like one another. And I know sketches are based upon someone's recollection as they give it to the artist, and the artist tries to match what they are describing. But two completely different pictures. I mean, I could see a defense attorney trying to put that into evidence and say, look, ladies, come on.
See, here's the thing, like Kay Danielle mentioned earlier in chat, wonder what he looked like when this crime happened 5 years ago. You know, the middle picture of him is his mugshot as of the other day. Now, even though the sketches look very like different, I feel like they do still have bits and pieces of his characteristics. Like the one without the facial hair has like his face shape. Like, I don't know. I just feel like even though the sketches are different, I think that they were still on point in their own ways, and definitely agree with the statement that this is one of the best composed sketches of a suspect, in my opinion, that I've seen in a while, probably ever in true crime. So props to these artists.
And there's two different people. Like, what's going on here? Or do you think perhaps there's a second suspect involved in all of this?
Well, I do think there's a second suspect, Vinny, but I do think the sketch on the left could be Rick Allen. I mean, that was what he was 6 years ago. He was 44. It could certainly be him. I mean, you know, a sketch is not perfect, but you see some type of resemblance there. The other one on the right seems like a younger guy. And like I said, the voice recorder, they said it was probably someone, you know, between a younger person, probably younger than Rick Allen at the time. So maybe there was somebody else involved. And again, that's why they have that tip line open to see if there's anybody else coming forward. I don't know how they got to Rick Allen, but, you know, there was definitely something there. They were digging in his backyard. They said at the time of the murder, there was a lot of blood evidence probably. So, I mean, someone connected the dots for them or something led them to him. And, you know, there might be somebody else out there. So.
And it seems as though a lot of people in chat today were thinking that there's somebody else out there as well. But that was a very interesting segment from Vinny on Court TV. And thank you all for being here. I think that this will wrap it up. So we will talk very soon, and we'll keep up on the updates in this case and everything going on with everything surrounding this case for sure, and other cases, as you guys know. Just looking through chat, so give me 1 second. And I linked the Facebook group that I run. It's a true crime private group. It's called Open Discussion on Disturbing True Crime Cases. And yes, give me a like and a subscribe, and would love to have you guys come back here and talk more cases and true crime with me. So you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk very soon. And hopefully we get more answers, and we are on the slow journey to justice for these girls. But like many things, patience is a virtue. And I think that, you know, it'll be worth the wait once this gets had. So you guys understand me. So we'll talk soon. Bye, guys.